Here we go. Tonight we're going to talk about the 1080 version 13 from New Balance, a neutral road running shoe designed for everyday use. I gotta say, this shoe, it's forgettable, meaning that it just simply disappears underfoot. The vibe that I'm getting from this shoe is it is a easy cruiser, like set it and forget it. Like, we're not gonna have to worry about, you know, any carbon fiber plates. We're not gonna worry about some fancy foam. We're not gonna worry about, you know, some super cool features that are only exclusive to the shoe. This is a tried and true flagship shoe from New Balance, and here it is in their 13th iteration. And we can go through some of the updates and some of the details later. But man, I'm just telling you, this is just a nice slice, a generous portion of Fresh Foam X underfoot for you just to forget about the shoe that you're wearing and worry more about the run you're doing, and just let those worries and those miles fade away. So we're just going to start at the top of this really interesting colorway. It's lime, it's lemon, it's summer. This reminds me of lemonade at the fair. Raise your hand if you like the fair. All right, so we got laces that are just really nice and supple. They almost feel like a t-shirt material, like a really nice heathered t-shirt. They are a delight over the top of the foot. Not as many eyelets, and that's okay. The distribution of the pressure across the top of the foot works very well with the tongue. I do enjoy the spacing of the eyelet chain. It's not crimping, it's not bunching. There's a decent amount of space, so you can really get customization with the lacing as you see fit. I did go ahead and throw the runner's loop in here, and we can talk about the fit here in a second of what that did, but there are eyelets available for you to do that up top. Okay, moving into the tongue of the shoe. The tongue here, you know, it's kind of fair to middling. It's not super luxurious. It's not really puffy. It's not screaming luxury. It's just a really nice, very supple, actually, soft tongue that is quite bendable, and it really just kind of melts across the top of the foot. All right, and so we have a elastic band that kind of goes from each side, lateral and medial, of the tongue towards the midsole and connects there, and just provides a nice top of the foot sensation. I didn't have a wonderful lockdown. It didn't, you know, really hold on to the foot super duper tight, but at the same time, it wasn't sloshing about or being all over the place. So it was nice. It's got a nice bit of ventilation, and then as it touches the top of the foot, it's a lot softer towards the top of the foot than it is on the opposite end here. But again, lots of ventilation for the tongue of the V13 here. Okay, moving into the upper. This is a fabric knit material, and there's no sew going on. There's, you know, some overlays, and there's some quite a bit of engineering actually that's going on in this upper. And just to the hand, it's very supple. There on your screen, you can kind of see me poke my toe out with very little effort whatsoever. Very comfortable. Very comfortable, even as we're going uphill and downhill, and the foot is kind of moving around a little bit as it's making contact with the sides here. It's not scratchy, it's not resisting, it's actually kind of allowing that stretch to happen. So it's a nice, almost a luxurious feel for the upper. There are certain key areas where there's stretch allowed, and then there's other areas where there's no stretch going on. So thinking about the toe box, there's some structure here to the toe box. It's not a radically structured toe box. There is quite a bit of flex here. But thinking about kind of the lateral aspect of the shoe, maybe you can see that there's kind of some additional features built into the actual upper that isn't able to be felt on the other side here, but it adds a little bit of not rigidity, but just overall structure and feel and composition, right? Composition to the upper, so it's not super duper floppy. Because I think if it was just this material here on the top here, it would just be kind of a floppy, loosey-goosey upper. But they have kind of these almost structural elements around, you know, here's the inside, the medial aspect, there's the lateral aspect, providing some structural stability of the shoe. Okay, and then, you know, up here across the runner's loop here, it goes towards the middle. That is kind of a bendable thin plastic feel material, and then it kind of works this way towards the back here, providing a little bit more stability for the upper. All right, lots and lots and lots of ventilation. I felt very, the shoe was very breathable on the foot here. And then moving towards the back, this is where it gets interesting. There's not really any bend at all. And it's just really this material that is really almost triply thick compared to anything else that has, you know, zero movement whatsoever of the heel. Not a very cavernous or deep heel pocket here, but what's probably the funnest thing about this shoe actually is this really fat pillow of material here that touches the Achilles. And you know, it's not a very sharply tapered piece of material, but it is a very nice, soft and supple material that extends down towards the top of the heel. And that was quite, I could feel that a lot during the run today. All right, and then it works nicely in conjunction when you apply the runner's loop and then the front of the tongue here as it touches your heel. It's not super duper soft. It's not any softer than anything else. The heel is actually a little bit softer than the top of the tongue here. And then around the lateral medial sides of the ankle, there is quite a bit of padding here, but it's not sharply demarcated where it just stops abruptly and then you got this thin material. It actually kind of works this way down, cradling that heel. And I did feel that significantly in the shoe, that the heel is nice and locked in, but it's not overly tight. It's not very aggressive. It's just a nice even distribution of the heel, locked down of the shoe, no slippage whatsoever. So I'm very happy to report that. So thinking about the width of the shoe as far as the upper goes, I don't have a wide foot, and this is considered a regular width, a D width here, but it felt very roomy and wide, especially in the toe box, but even more so in the midfoot. All right, there's some decent lockdown, but I still could feel some movement going on back and forth in the midfoot as I was running. It's not a terrible amount. I wasn't having a ton of friction or heat buildup or anything like that, as you would expect in a poorly fitting shoe. It was just roomy and allowed for some movement to happen. So, you know, it's not a super duper tight shoe by any means, but it is comfortable. So anybody that has wide feet, you could maybe consider this, but they also make wide widths as well. Okay, taking out the insert of the shoe. Alrighty, it's not a super duper thick or highly structured insert. You know, it seems just kind of fair to middling. It just works well with the rest of the shoe. What I'm interested in now that the insert is out are what's the sidewall situation? Okay, so the sidewalls here are these pieces of what looks to be the midsole, but it's actually several millimeters thick of these like wings that extend up and hold the foot and keep it from sliding back and forth. And there's some really generous wings here going on the V13. And I want to see, does it go all the way down? And it does extend quite a ways down towards the fifth toe and ends here towards the first toe as far as the wings go. And then feeling kind of where the heel works its way towards the top of the midsole. There's no radical change as far as the angle from where your heel bone is sitting on top of the insert. There's no drastic change, so that's nice. The thing about New Balance that I really like is their construction, and you can tell just by looking inside the shoe and just the feel of the materials. It's just a really well constructed shoe. And then lastly, the material that works its way with the heel just does end about this quarter of the way as it wraps around the heel, but then it stops here, and then the ventilation really takes off about the last 3/4 of the shoe. All right, moving into the midsole. This is a very generous portion of Fresh Foam X. In fact, there on your screen are the stats for this year's model, the V13, of how much stack we're getting here. It's going to be a 37 in the heel and a 31 in the forefoot for a very nice 6mm drop. A lot of the shoes that I've been running in recently have been like that 4 to 5 range, so it's interesting that it's just 2 more millimeters, but you can definitely tell a difference. At least I did in the shoe. You know, you're not like leaning super duper forward like a Brooks or a Mizuno. There is quite a bit of difference between a 4 and a 6mm. It doesn't sound like a lot, but whenever you start getting up on your feet and carrying on like that, you can definitely tell a difference. So what's going on with the midsole is there's a couple of different densities, right? There's a nice, amount of cushion, in fact, really cushiony in the heel, but as you get towards the front of the shoe, it kind of changes into a little bit more stout, a little bit more unwilling to bend, okay? And it's right here towards kind of that, metatarsal area, and you can almost feel that the slope of the shoe is working right here towards the metatarsal area, and it's allowing you to really push off and spring off for a little bit more energy return than I was expecting in an everyday trainer type shoe. So that was really, really fun. And you can almost feel like the change as you're running along, you're putting your weight into it. It does, provide that nice cushion, but it does give a little bit of spring back. It's not something that, you're going to expect to take to the track and do like speed workouts and everything, but it just works well, and it's kind of fun whenever you wanted to get a little bit faster and everything. The shoe is there for you in that regard. The other thing I want to talk about is how squishy this Fresh Foam X is feeling. If you would take a look at kind of the width of the forefoot, it's not super duper wide. And so this landing platform, what I noticed, especially here and there on your screen, I call it an outrigger. Basically, it's this area of material towards the lateral aspect of the forefoot that is designed to, almost receive any excess rolling or motion, or in my case, supination, coming down really hard. I feel like there is just a sharp drop as far as the forefoot goes, and some have this slant or even a kind of a nubbin out here. I think about the Nike Invincible version 1. They had this big chunk of material here, and it was kind of weird at the time, but the more I ran with it, the more I understood that it was there just to kind of receive any excess motion and kind of get that shoe back, almost like a kickstand. There's not really a whole lot going on here, and I did feel that, plus me supinating and then how accommodative and squishy this is, there was almost a tendency to be a little unstable. Not unsafe, but there was a couple of times where it kind of moved more than I wanted it to, and that was a little bit surprising. So something to keep in mind. Want to keep your wits about you with this one. I know we talked about how you can forget about the shoe and everything. I would say to keep this in the medium mileage range, so you're not really getting super exhausted with a really long run, so that way you don't have that issue. There are other shoes I feel that would be more apt for the long slow distance versus this one here. This is more your, whatever your range is that is not considered a long run and is not a workout, that would be what I feel that this shoe is best for. Moving on to the outsole, lots of rubber. Lots of strategically placed rubber along the bottom of the shoe. And again, talking about the construction of the New Balance here, I feel that this is going to last a long time for many miles, which is great, because this is the shoe that we're going to be reaching for those everyday miles. This is waking up at 5 in the morning and you don't want to have to think about a dang thing except getting outside and getting your run on. You don't want to think about the shoe. You don't want to think about your clothes. You don't want to think about anything else. You just want to be outside, and this shoe is going to be there for you. So one of the drawbacks that I did feel was whenever I put the runner's loop in, typically I will kind of, tap my heel in towards the corner pocket of the shoe to really make sure that it's in there, and then engage the runner's knot. I did that, and then I started to run. That became way too tight here. Now that could be me. That could be me just putting the thing on way too tight, but I feel like I've done the same thing with other shoes, and it hasn't, really been that noticeable. It provided a lot more in the way of really bringing that heel in, but it was almost a little bit too aggressive towards the top of my foot. It wasn't painful. It was just more pressure than I wanted. So that would just be something to think about is, there's a little bit of room in the shoe to move around, and that the runner's loop can cause a little bit of excess pressure towards the top of the foot. Okay, let's throw this on the scale and see how much we weigh. And the 1080v13 is 10.5 ounces in a men's size 11. Actually, that is lighter than I expected, okay? It's not that bad. All right, I went true to size. There is a really good amount of room in the toes. It's not excessive as far as that goes. A really, really, really good fitting shoe. All right, everybody, so that is it for the New Balance 1080 version 13. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you please wouldn't mind giving it a like, a thumbs up, I would really appreciate that. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel and follow along the journey. I like talking about running shoes. Down here is all about family and coffee and running shoes, and we're going to talk about those things in order as they pop up. Okay, the link for this shoe will be available in the description. Even a click supports the channel, and I really, 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 truly appreciate that. Okay, guys, that is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful summer, and I will see you in the next one. Fresh Foam.